Hey. See if this works. Oh, seems to be. So I'm trying a different setup today. I don't know if it's better or worse. Well, that's out of tune, which happens sometimes. Especially Les Pauls. Les Pauls are one of the worst for staying in tune, so there you go. So this is my weekly live stream that I do. It's always the G and the D. G usually. I'm trying something different. I'm using the real camera today, just to see if this is going to work. So I bought an HDMI connector thing. Come on. Hopefully it stays in tune. Because I've been using a little GoPro camera connected into the computer, and I sort of felt for a while like the video quality is not particularly great. And I thought, you know, maybe I could just use my real cameras, which I used to film with anyway. Why don't I try and see if they'll live stream? And it seems to be working. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear everything? Let me know. It's not ultimately the kind of how I'm going to set things up, but it's a start. Used my Les Paul for some recording last night. I was just like, man, these guitars just... just got a big, meaty sound. And they're not what people think a lot of the time with Les Pauls. Like, right? People think Les Pauls, they think of a fat guitar sound. It's actually quite bright. So I've just set up my iPad here. I'm going to play a track. Why not? What is this track? This is Funk Fusion Guitar Backing Track in G minor. I'm going to move that iPad. There we go. Hopefully you're hearing everything okay. I assume you are. I don't know. My computer's over there. So I'm using a different setup, and I think the quality looks better. The video quality, at least, I think. You know, audio should be the same. It's the same audio as normal. But let's try this. This is Funk Fusion Guitar Backing Track in G minor from Jammin' Backing Tracks. So hopefully that's coming through all right. I'm kind of, this is a different way of doing this. I'm monitoring the chat from here and backing tracks on my iPad from here, and usually, because I'm not at my computer, so it's kind of a little bit of a different way of doing things. So hey, if you got any questions, let me know. If there's anything you want to know about music or whatever. Primarily today, I kind of wanted to chat about Instagram. I've been thinking about Instagram a lot. It's sort of one of those things, right? I saw a video recently of the great Dan Huff. One of my guitar heroes, is everyone's guitar hero. And Dan was talking, with Tom Bukovac, and they were talking about various things. Dan Huff mentioned a young Australian guitar player, a guy called Josh Meader. And I met Josh some years ago when he came to New Zealand. He came over here with what they were calling the Trans-Tasman Big Band, which was a New Zealand big band and an Australian big band. They kind of blended them together to make this kind of best of both, if you will. And Josh was the guitar player. And he sounded great then, and he's just gone from strength to strength. But Dan Huff gave him a shout out and said that he was checking him out on Instagram. And it made me think, gee, is that Instagram kind of a way that people kind of discover people now? I mean, even the great Dan Huff is kind of going on there and checking out players like Josh Meader and all kinds of other people, I'm sure. And I thought, gee, I wonder if someone like that, not necessarily Dan, but has someone like that watched my stuff on there? I don't really post that much on Instagram. I'm a bit slack with that. The only place I've really consistently ever posted is on YouTube, and even then, kind of took a big hiatus in the middle there. Keeping up with this stuff is tricky. I don't think people realize. But there's a good buddy of mine, Jacob Randall, really fantastic drummer here in Wellington, New Zealand. He posts on Instagram pretty much every day. I remember chatting to him about it. I was like, dude, why? And he said he was getting a whole lot of session work from doing it. Like Russian dudes would get in touch and be like, hey man, didn't you play drums on my record? I heard you on Instagram today and you sound killing. Would you mind doing this? And so he's been getting session work out of it, which is crazy. I mean, session work never really kind of worked that way when I was getting started, right? We had to kind of slog it out, get out and play in bars and that kind of stuff, and get heard by the right kind of producers and people like that. And then, someone would recommend you for one thing. I mean, the way I got the Dancing with the Stars gig was that I'd done some session work for a composer in Wellington, a guy who wrote pretty much everything you hear on TV1. And the musical director of Dancing with the Stars got in touch with him and said, who's the band I should put together? Who's the Wellington Cats, And he said, oh, there's this young guitar player around town who's killing it. He's your guy, So he got me the gig, because I'd done about 3 or 4 sessions for him at the time. For those in New Zealand, the TV1 News, that was me, those big power chords, which is, it's nothing really much, but all I did was went, and then, like, 2 big distorted power chords. And I remember doing a recording session for the composer for that, and we kind of tacked those on the end, and that's how that ended up. But I did Fair Go and the Brian Edwards show with him, a bunch of things like that, of these sessions, So he when they were putting their band together, my name came up, and that's how I kind of got it. There was no kind of getting session work on Instagram. Instagram didn't exist in those days. I mean, we're talking 25, 30 years ago. Yeah, 30 years ago. Shit. And so, you didn't have Instagram to kind of promote yourself, if you will, you know what I mean? And it's pretty cool, but there's kind of this global thing. But there's some downsides to Instagram and these social media things today, too. I kind of want to talk about it today. And kind of get your thoughts on it, too. That needs a bit more juice. Such a great sound, the Les Paul. So what are the downsides of Instagram? I mean, the good sides we just mentioned, is you can get session work, you can have people get in touch about, getting you involved in their projects. You've kind of got a global audience. It doesn't really matter where you're based now, that kind of stuff. I'm based in Wellington, New Zealand, like a little city of 500,000 people, which punches above its weight for what it is, but nonetheless, it's still just a little city in the Pacific, people pay attention to what I do. It's crazy. But the downsides to it are, I think Instagram kind of encourages people to kind of be flashy. which in the real world does not work. Right? If you go and play all this stuff where people are doing these slap harmonics and all this kind of, Giacomo Tura kind of stuff that the controversy aside, like that guy was popular for a reason, because it's flashy kind of stuff that people haven't have thought of slap guitar before. And so therefore it's kind of becomes about this being flashy, which in the real world isn't how it works, right? Even YouTube, what I do here, I don't, I do a lot of solos when I do the stuff on YouTube. But man, in the real world, I don't get as many solos as I get on the YouTube stuff or on Instagram or any of that. 95% of gigs for me are playing rhythm guitar. Something like... Not that chord. This kind of stuff, like that's the gig, right? And maybe I'll get a solo in every second tune, third tune maybe. Sometimes only 8 bars of solo, so maybe 20 seconds. Now you've got to kind of say something in that time, but it's short. It's not like this big open solo like what I can do. I mean, even before I played 2 minutes of that backing track thing, 2-minute guitar solo on most gigs, not happening. Now it's different when it's my gig, like if I'm doing like a Nick Granville group or a concert or something like that. I kind of feature the guitar a bit more because it's my gig, right? People have come to hear me play guitar. But when it comes to like a regular gig where I'm playing behind singers, say for example, you don't get to be flashy like you get to be on Instagram. And I think Instagram promotes flashy because it's really short, right? You've got a little short amount of time. You've got about a minute or a minute and a half, whatever it is, to kind of say a lot of things. And even then, people don't watch the whole lot of videos. Like if you look at YouTube shorts, people, like most shorts, like, maybe I'll do a minute video. Some people only watch like 20 seconds of it. And you got to grab their attention in 20 seconds in the same way you have to on Instagram, or they move on to the next thing because they're doom scrolling. Do you know what I mean by doom scrolling? Where people sitting there and they watch one thing and then they flick to the next one and then they flick to the next one, and they're not actually intentionally choosing to watch anything. They're just letting the algorithm feed up whatever it feeds, and they're just scrolling from one thing to the next to the next. My family do that. It drives me nuts. I can't. On occasion I do it, and when I catch myself doing it, I stop. Because doom scrolling's bad, you know what I mean? And Instagram kind of promotes that. So that's one thing, right? There's also weird behavior that happens on Instagram. Do you guys find this? Where people... I have people sometimes who they follow you, and then they like 3 or 4 posts. And then what they do is they go and they wait till you reciprocate follow, because you go and, once it pops up in your notifications, this person's followed you and they've liked 3 posts, it sort of shows up on their stuff. And then you go there and you go, oh, and you check out a couple of videos and they can play and they seem like someone who does similar things to what you do. So you go and you reciprocate follow, and then the next day they go and they unfollow you to build their numbers up. It's just shitty behavior, you know what I mean? And Instagram seems to encourage this. There are people that have made whole careers building up their industry that way. Weird. As my friend Rob Harris would say, that they're people that do that are bellions. Bellions. It's not really a term we use here in New Zealand, but I always thought that was funny. If you don't know who Rob Harris is, you should go and check him out. He's a badass guitar player, man. I love Rob's playing. Most known for the gig with Jamiroquai, but he also plays with all kinds of bands and session stuff, and just a great guitar player, and primarily like a rhythm player. I mean, solo's great too, but his rhythm is badass. So, and that to me is kind of where it's at. The players I check out the most and I'm most interested in are people who got badass rhythm, like Rob Harris or Charlie Hunter or Ella Feingold or Spanky Alford or Isaiah Sharkey or all kinds of players. Mark Lettieri. Aeroposing. I'm gonna swap over to the Strat. It's an interesting thing. When I think of a Les Paul, I think of like, it makes me want to play lines and melodies, less chords. And it's an interesting thing. I saw a thing recently of Julian Lage talking about the Telecaster, and he was saying that now playing a Telecaster, he wants to play more low notes. When he played the archtop guitar, it was kind of like this. The archtop kind of would be mushy on the low notes and kind of warmer on the high notes, so he would gravitate to the higher notes. But now he's playing a Telecaster, it's clearer on the low notes, so he wants to play more low notes. Interesting, isn't it? You know, on this I kind of want to play lines, and I generally want to play higher notes. But when I play something like this, I want to play rhythm guitar. That's what it... Oh. Man, the old Les Paul weighs a ton. Whew. That's a particularly kind of heavy Les Paul. Those old studios from the 90s, man, they were good guitars. That thing's killer. It's one of those things that it's an interesting kind of thing, because a lot of times that companies think, well, we'll make a thin finish to make it cheaper to produce, and we can make a cheaper guitar to a price point. Those are the best sounding guitars. You know, the ones that they cake in plastic don't sound as good. They just don't, right? That's why the nitro finishes often sounded better, because they don't kind of choke up the guitar with all this plastic on top of it. That's basically what it is, right? And so those thin finishes, like my Telecaster, Highway 1, one of the cheaper USA models at the time, that thing sounds killer. It's interesting, this guitar's got 9s on it. That's what it came with. That's apparently what they ship all their guitars with. And man, that light string on the top. Even the B string feels super light. It's an interesting thing. It's like, it's easier to play in some ways, but it's way harder in others, right? Like you just can't dig in. Needs a bit more juice. So that's what I want to play when I play a Strat. You know, I mean, I will do kind of lines like that, but really I want to go. And like I mentioned, my favorite setting on this is go to the bridge pickup and then press the S1 switch, which adds the neck in. That's funky. Man, I'd so love to put some heavier strings on this, but it's not my guitar, it's going back, so... you know, thanks to Direct Imports for sending this out to me. Direct Imports are the New Zealand distributor of Fender, so I guess you could say they're Fender New Zealand. I guess they're a big warehouse that brings a whole lot of different products in and ships them out to the various music stores and stuff. A really great guy, Adrian, there hooked me up to make this happen. And Steve Davey, the manager of Musicworks in Wellington, was the connection to kind of get it delivered to, because they don't deliver from the warehouse to direct to customers. You know, not that I'm a customer, but you know, it's kind of treated the same way, so it had to go via a music store because of what they do. So it's awesome. Like, I've been wanting to kind of check out some Fender stuff for a while. I'd like to check out the Vintera 2. I reckon that looks like an interesting instrument. Direct Imports, Adrian was also talking about the American Standard. The new one has come in. So hopefully I can get my hands on that and kind of give you my opinion. You know, because and I never ever get told what to say. Like he did. He literally was like, the guitar's on its way. That was about it. There was no like... It wasn't any kind of number of videos having to be done. There was no payment. There was no, you can keep the guitar. You know, sometimes that gets offered, but it's like there was no keeping the guitar. I'm like, so it's just, I'm doing this because I want to, right? It's an interesting thing too with Instagram, you know, back to that. It's kind of become a very slick kind of thing. I mean, I think when Instagram was created, it had a very different kind of purpose. And the purpose was that you could only use your phone, right? You could just use your phone to kind of upload stuff. And that was kind of cool, because it kind of meant it was sort of people get their phone out and they kind of record something, or they, you know, do a little bit of a clip about their life, going to the gym, what they're eating that day for lunch, crap like that, right? And that's kind of what it was. And now it's become this thing where people have got full big productions and they do all this stuff, and then they, you know, upload those videos to their phone, but they've recorded them on real cameras and edited them in Final Cut and the whole big bang production, because they realize there's a huge audience there right now, right? It's kind of changed it, I reckon. Not necessarily for the better. It's even that, I don't really even feel like playing that on a Strat. I know maybe other people do, but for me, I kind of hear, I kind of want to go. So it's more like a rhythmic kind of bass, you know what I mean? Hey, I'm going to play another track, why not? Another one from Jammin' backing tracks. This is Fusion Guitar backing track in C minor. Hopefully you're hearing everything okay. Anyone got any questions? Anything you want to know about music? Guitar, if you want to know about this while I've still got it, you know. Got a couple of gigs. I had 2 gigs in the weekend. I played, actually, a bass player friend of mine, Elliot, that I've played hundreds of gigs with. You'll have seen him on the channel on various things. He's the funkiest dude around. That dude's seriously heavy bass player. You know, sometimes some gigs I do with him, I just stop playing and I just smile at how awesome he sounds. Especially the funk stuff. It's like 16th notes. And what's crazy is he's a construction worker. He gets out and he like digs holes and makes buildings and does all kinds of stuff around town. And, you know, he might not touch his bass for a week, and then he get it out, and he'll play bass unlike anybody in this town. It's just funky as shit. And all the other bass players I know all take their hat off to him, you know. Johnny Lawrence, one of the best bass players in town. I remember the other day he was talking about Elliot and just saying, man, that dude is, like, ridiculous. And I was like, I know, I don't even know how the hell he does it. You know, it just kind of picks it up, and it's just this natural musical thing that... Yeah, but anyway, his sister just graduated with a PhD. So they put a family band together to go and play some music for the family, which was awesome. But whoever it was playing, one of the family members was going to play guitar, couldn't do it in the end, so was unwell or something. So he said, would I step in? And man, what an honor to go and play for one of your dear friends' families, and kind of, you know, it was pretty cool. And then I played a Western swing gig on Friday, something I don't really do. I'm not a country player at all. Anyone who knows me knows that I barely know how to do any country. Like, I know a couple of licks. Yeah, I mean, I can kind of bluff it, and I've had to do that on sessions before. I can kind of bluff the country-ish. But it's an interesting thing, you know. It's sort of like the Western swing thing, isn't it? Essentially, it's cowboy bebop, right? Like, he wants me to play bebop. So I played a Telecaster because the main reason was that Don, who's the singer and plays rhythm guitar, he wanted to, he really wanted to be playing his L5. He's got a 40, I think it's a 46 L5. It's Beautiful guitar, it's stunning. So he was going to be playing like an arch top, and I thought I could play an arch top too, but I thought it'd be nice to have that contrast of a Telecaster on the neck pickup, and then you can kind of get a little more country when you need to, but you can do the bebop thing, or at least western swing version of bebop. So yeah, it's kind of fun. Anyway, this is Fusion Groove Guitar Backing Track in C minor from Jam & Backing Tracks. I don't know this track at all, we'll see where it goes. It's a fun track. You know, so that's jamming, backing tracks, you know, kind of some fun stuff. Anyone want to know anything? Anyone got any questions? Comments? Is it sounding okay? Oh, no, I know what I need to do. There we go. Yeah, so we got another gig with that Western Swing guy on Friday in Wellington. And we'll be playing at Undercurrent, which is a little club. I haven't played there yet before. It's an interesting thing. It feels so weird with the light strings. This neck though is killer. It really is. It's, you know, quarter sawn necks is kind of where it's at. That's what my one of the reasons I love that Porry Smith 3P91, the blue one. You know, blue's my favorite color too, so there's something cool about that. It just looks striking, isn't it? There's something beautiful about the Stratocaster shape. I watched a video last night of someone talking about the headstock shapes that, you know, people have come to know Fender and Gibson so well now that it's hard to do anything outside of that and not look weird, right? I know some people have criticized Suhr guitars because of their stock shape, right? But they can't use a Fender headstock shape. This is like the copyrighted part of it. It's like a big part of it. So these other companies have to try and do something, but there's just something about this that just looks classy. I'm not a big fan of the big headstock Fenders, you know, the 70s ones. They're all right, but I like this. This to me looks, the 60s style is the one. But yeah, it's got such a great neck, satin finish on the neck, and quarter sawn, rounded edges, the flatter radius, which I prefer, you know, because can't do that on my telly. It starts to choke out, even with the action kind of jacked on it to be able to get round that. Otherwise it would, you know, and that's a 9-inch radius, I think it is. But compound radius is where it's at. The other thing about Instagram too, while I'm kind of on that trait, it's an interesting thing because I know a lot of musicians who kind of put a lot of energy into that kind of stuff, right? You know, try and make a name for themselves out there and all that kind of stuff. When I think in some ways it kind of distracts from doing stuff in the real world, right? Those same musicians, you know, if they were to put that same energy into putting out an album, might the results be different? Probably. Would it kind of gain them more of a following on Instagram just by virtue of gaining more of a following in the real world? Yeah, probably. Let me know what you think. Drop me a comment. You know, I'm always curious to see what people's thoughts are on this stuff. You know, I think about this a lot because this is my profession. This is what I do. I don't have another job, but playing guitar is it. And it's kind of been that. And I've been committed to doing this for a long time. And, you know, like everybody who does this, they get fed up with it and feel like quitting at least a couple times a week, if not every day. Because it's tough. And people treat you like shit. And people take advantage of you. And, you know, sometimes getting paid for things that, you make a deal and then people don't pay or don't show up. You know, I had someone come for a lesson, supposed to come for a lesson the other day, and didn't show up at all. And then I contacted the guy's mother, a young cat, and she was like, "Oh, sorry, it was school holidays, so we thought there wasn't going to be a lesson today." And I was like, "Why didn't you tell me?" And she sent a smiley face back. And I was like, "Would you do that to a plumber or a builder?" No, you wouldn't. It's kind of... But it seems to be okay with music. I think because, you know, people see this as an amateur thing. Right? And they see stuff online and they kind of go, "Whoa, this person's just giving this away for free, so it's got no value." And I get that that's the world you live in now, but it's sort of, I would just wonder if Instagram and all social media really is kind of sculpting musicians in a different kind of way. You know, someone like Giacomo Turro, I haven't really said much about that guy because I don't want to jump on the bandwagon. You know, there's nothing worse than what I'm seeing at the moment, which is all these lame-ass YouTubers trying to just slam that guy. Now, granted, some people are legitimate in their quest to kind of give more information, like Danny Sapko. That was totally legit. You know, that guy did a service to everyone by doing that, or doing those videos that he did and kind of putting it out there and making some people who weren't aware. The rest of us, like me, I was aware of right from the beginning when I heard that guy. I was like, man, it's edited to heck. Sounds fake as heck. And doesn't sound original at all. It turns out it wasn't original at all. But, you know, Danny kind of brought it to a wider attention, which is great. But now I'm seeing all these other smaller channels that have no connection to it kind of getting on there and trying to slam the guy. And that to me is lame, you know what I mean? And then other people staying quiet about it, at least for a long time, you know what I mean? You know, and then people like Jack Gardner and Alex Hutchins, whatever his name is. You know, people like that, they have every right to speak up about it because they were directly affected, you know. But I think that kind of Instagram really promotes people like Giacomo Turro, right? He is somebody who is just, really what he did was manipulate the whole algorithm to his advantage, right? The theft part aside, but actually just like the approach. You know, his approach was just to kind of milk it for all it was worth. Put on a Hawaiian shirt, sit by a pool and play like lame-ass kind of smooth jazz kind of stuff. Now, I wasn't like, some of it was actually all right, but for me, the bit that was lame was that it just didn't sound musical. It actually, you know, when someone goes in and quantizes every note, and then auto-tunes it so it's perfectly in tune. It just sounds fake as heck. It's like people who Photoshop themselves to death, you know what I mean? And you know that person doesn't actually look like that in real life, and it just, we all see it now, right? We see that image and we go, wow, look at this model, she looks photoshopped. We can spot it straight away. Well, I think Instagram guitar is kind of the same, and Giacomo's just one of many doing it, right? There's a whole lot of these Japanese guitar players I've seen lately doing it. Just looking at some of you, just doing this lame ass, fully edited kind of thing that, you know, go and listen to some Stevie Wonder. That guy didn't edit every note he did. You know, sure, there were edits in the music, you know, maybe they cut out sections, whatever, but he didn't quantize it to try and make it perfect. It was perfect already because they played it as it was meant to be played, right? It was real and it's human, and that's what music's all about. And unfortunately, I think, you know, because you've got such a short amount of time to kind of grab people's attention, it kind of promotes bullshit, doesn't it? Really? And, you know, maybe I'm just an old man. You know, I'm 46 years old, going to be 47 soon, and I remember a time when there were a heap of gigs around and a lot of session work and TV shows and all that kind of stuff, and to get that work, you had to be able to really play. And man, it was on the line every time you did it, because if you didn't cut it, word got around. You know, I remember a guitar player that played guitar too on a show I did, and he tanked completely. And this guy, you know, the pressure got to him. It was kind of sad, you know, because he could play okay. It was more of a jazz guy than actually a pop guy, so he kind of struggled with that. But they put him on the spot on this recording session, and he just couldn't do it. And yeah, kind of. And actually, I got a hard time. The producer of the session gave me a hard time about it and said, well, you recommended this guy. And I was like, well, you know, what's your other option? There wasn't many people around that I thought could do it. But also they were like, well, why didn't you play the guitar part? And I was like, what do you want me to do? You put the music on his stand. I'm not going to go over and grab it off his stand and put it on my stand and then play it. How's that? You know, that's on you. And also, too, the other thing, like, it was clearly written guitar 2 on the top of the chart. No, I was guitar 1, so I sat out, he tanked on it, and, you know, I was out the back having a coffee, having a break with most of the rest of the orchestra, so it was sort of like, not my fault. But it's an interesting thing that you know, it's sort of, you had to be able to really play. There was no faking it. Because, you know, people put out albums and edit stuff, but you couldn't edit it like you can edit now. You know, it's kind of crazy what people can do nowadays. You know, like extreme editing. You know, they can... I don't know. Oh, Evolutionary Sleeper. Hello, sir. He says, I always thought that guy sucked. I bet he wouldn't last very long in a jam session in New York City. Yeah, I agree. That was the first thing I thought. And actually, I'd had a few messages from people that sent me clips of him because they fell for it, right? And then my reply was this is fake as shit, like, you know. And that dude's gonna get found out when he has to go and play. I don't know if people saw that Rick Beato video, which kind of was interesting that it took Rick so long. Rick fell for it. You know, I remember seeing Rick commenting on Giacomo's videos and putting the fire emoji underneath stuff. And I was like, come on, man. You got the ears to know the difference. But anyway, Rick did a video and kind of said that when he got him in the studio and he couldn't play, he realized, well, so he didn't put the video out. You know, kind of says it all. But why didn't Rick speak up about it at the time? You know, maybe he didn't want to get caught up in that. I don't know. But it's not just New York City. Like, that guy wouldn't last in a jam session kind of anywhere, right? So I have to use my phone to read comments because computer's over there. I'm using a different setup today, so hopefully it sounds good. Question here says, tips for getting session work nowadays in New Zealand. Fresh jazz school graduate looking for more work. Yeah, I mean, the Instagram thing, you know, like I mentioned earlier, the good sides of it is that, you know, people promote themselves kind of that way. I was mentioning about Jacob Randall, really badass drummer in Wellington. He you know, puts himself out there on Instagram, and he's been getting session work from all kinds of dudes from like Russia and India and, you know, all over the place that are getting him to play on their albums. And you've got to have a setup. is the first thing, like a proper setup that makes people want to book you. Because, if it's just a laptop and you with a Strat, well, you better be really badass, and already be established probably at that point. But if you're trying to establish yourself, you've got to have some kind of setup that makes people want to get you on their session. And the first thing to do is to probably put it out there that that's what you want to do. I remember getting an email from this female bass player in town. I can't remember her name, but she flicked me an email, and the caption underneath her name said composer session bass player. And I thought, okay, I'd never seen her on any session. She never did any of that work that I knew of, but by putting it as her signature in her email, it's telling people this is what I'm aiming to do. You know what I mean? And whether she actually got there or not, I don't know. But yeah, so put it out in the world that that's what you want to do, and do some examples of yourself doing that. Put it on YouTube, put it wherever, and send it to people. Ask around. One of the best ways to get session work, I think, is to get recommended by people who do that work, right? And the way you do that is by firstly being able to play well and impress those people. And what I mean by impress them is not Instagram impress them, like I was talking about earlier. I mean like actually impress them that you could do the job. Because believe me, sessions is not playing the way some people play on Instagram. Man, you're not gonna last on a session doing that, right? Nobody wants that. If it's a rock tune, and say the tune goes, I don't know, something like G, B flat, and F. Can you do that for 2 minutes without stuffing anything up? All right. And, if someone has to go in and edit every note you do, then they're going to get annoyed with you, right? You have to just be able to do that, right? And that takes practice. That's hard to do, you know what I mean? I was watching this video the other night of Greg Fillinganes, and he was talking about how he, when he played on Thriller, that bass line, he did that from beginning to end. No edits, no anything, just played it perfectly. That's hard to do. And anyone thinks that, that that's easy, you go and try it. Try and play even just a simple part like that. Something like that, and see, can you play it right in the pocket with good time and not speed up or slow down, and be consistent, make it feel good with the right tone for a period of time. It's tricky. So, yeah. Hey, Aaron, how you doing, man? Yeah, I saw those videos of him playing live, and it was kind of lame. Well, it was exactly what I thought it was going to be, right? And I've seen some of these Japanese guitar players doing the same thing. I saw one of them playing at a booth at the NAMM show, and I was there, right? I was walking around, and I saw it, and it was just lame. It was, one of these guys who edits every note of his playing, quantizes it, just like Giacomo does, right? And I saw a video that someone else posted, obviously one of his crew, where they'd gone and edited it, and there was a moment, I remember it very clearly being there, where this dude like stuffed up this fast run, and then when you heard the video, it was perfect. And what had happened is they took the camera and they kind of panned around to the audience and then came back to the guy, but that was the bit they edited in there, and I just went away going, oh man, lame. But whatever. you can get bothered by that stuff, and it sort of becomes all consuming, or just get on with what you do. And people like that always get found out. That's what's happened with Giacomo. He's just like, he's just like the pinnacle of it, because he was successful, and people kind of, hated to see someone like that doing that, getting successful. That's why I said a lot of these lame-ass YouTubers are jumping on the bandwagon now, trying to slam that guy when they have no connection to it and no reason, no validity to do it. There are people who are valid, like I said, like Danny Sapko and Levi Clay had a lot of good stuff to say about it. Alex and Jack Gardner and people like that who are actually were affected, but it's people that have nothing to do with it, just getting on there and trying to get some easy views. Lame, right? I guess that's what happens. Now swap back to the Les Paul. Even though it's a heavy beast of a guitar. Oh, especially grabbing it from that angle. Boy. It's just something about Les Pauls, eh? They're just a big hunk of wood that works. I think the Les Paul is such a beautiful looking guitar, though. They're not necessarily the most comfortable to play. I think the most comfortable guitar to play is a Strat. Just have all the right curves and the right places. Like, you know, they got the arm curve here, so your arm sits right. Body curve, so your bare belly doesn't get in the way. Just all's right in the world when you have that kind of sound, right? Question here: how do you treat stacking overdrive pedals? Not sure if I should put tube screamer before or after the BB preamp. Yeah, okay, so yeah, my philosophy on stacking them is I love doing that. To me, it's like if you have two overdrive pedals, say, I don't know, a cleaner one and a dirtier one, you'll get a cleaner drive, you get a dirtier drive, and then you put them together and you get an extreme, right? And the way they stack together is really important. Some pedals just don't like stacking together, right? You might find that a BB preamp and a tube screamer don't stack well because they're both kind of quite... The tube screamer is pretty mid-heavy, and the BB is kind of a version of a tube screamer apparently, but without the mid boost. But you might find that it just becomes too much of a similar thing. What I find with stacking pedals is like contrast works, right? That's why the Dude is one of my favorite pedals, because you get that singing sweet tone, but you stack that with a lower gain kind of drive pedal with more mids. With more mid cut, I should say, and they kind of, it just pairs well with other pedals. Same with the OCD. OCD is kind of a harsher distortion pedal, but again, it contrasts nicely with other stuff. So I always look for two that contrast, and that's kind of the key thing to stacking them, I think. But also too, I remember seeing something where someone said the rule was to put your cleaner overdrives first and your more dirty overdrives later. So say you had three pedals, you go, I don't know, whatever the three were. Say it was a Greer Lightspeed, a BB preamp, and a Dude. You would go in that order. So Greer first in the signal chain, BB, and then the Dude in that order, so that they're getting less drive to more drive. But even that, there's no rules. Do whatever works, right? If it sounds good, it is good. But also too, it kind of depends on what amp you're running into. For that Fender demo, I used my MPC amp, which is a new amp I recently acquired. And I noticed that my pedals were responding differently to that amp because it's got a different kind of mid-range character. It's got two 12-inch speakers, you know, as opposed to my Bassman, which has 4 10s, as opposed to my Deluxe, which has 1x12. So a very different kind of character from it. Quite a big cabinet because it's two 12s. So I think that's kind of it. Like, you'll find that it's just making it work for what you want. Yeah, try that. Aaron says, when I realized Instagram guitar was so fake, I stopped feeling bad for myself. Yeah, that's the thing. I've heard people kind of discuss this before, as like Instagram kind of bad for younger players and kind of what they're going to think about the world and music, and an unfair expectation. And I saw, was it Adam Neely's video where he was talking about guitar being faked, and that, you know, he was trying to make out it was a good thing in some kind of way, or I didn't really get where he was coming from. I kind of got the impression he missed the point of that Giacomo Chura thing, and Rick Beato too. As much as I love Rick's channel, I think Rick kind of missed the point of that Giacomo Chura thing, that the faking guitar was only one of the issues, and actually it was the smaller one. It was the theft, right, where he's stealing other people's solos, selling transcriptions, you know, Spotify streams of other people's music without permission. I mean, it's just literally theft. That was the bit that really kind of pushed it over the line. The fake ass stuff of it, well, it's kind of, you can take that or leave it. And there are others doing that probably need to get called out for it too, because it's lame. But we don't have to watch it, right? And that was kind of my thing. As soon as I saw Giacomo and I saw how fake it was, a couple of people sent me some things. I was like, I'm just not going to watch this. I'm not giving it my time or attention. And then all of a sudden now all the scandals happened. I'm like, well, you all fell for it. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think anyone should feel bad about themselves. But it's setting this unrealistic expectation of what's possible. It's just bullshit. Anyway. Max says, "Hey Nick, always cool to hang in great musicianship with you on your live streams." Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, I'm trying something different. I'm using my real camera instead of like normally. What I do is I have this DJI Osmo that's like it's like a GoPro, and I put that on 2 tripods to sort of have it there, and I use that as a webcam because the webcam on my computer's it's okay, but this is way better. But now I'm actually using my real camera, my Sony A7 III. I got the 24mm lens on the end of it, and I've got so I go out of that out of the camera into my monitor, which is how I see it because they don't have a flip screen, and on my monitor, which sits above the camera. So if you ever see me looking slightly above the lens, that's what I'm looking. I'm checking out things in there to make sure everything's okay, which is kind of dumb to have to do that, but there you go. And then I go HDMI out of that, and I bought this little HDMI adapter to USB. It costs like $30 or $40 at Dick Smith here in New Zealand, which is probably like $10 in the US at Radio Shack, if that even still exists. But I think the picture quality is so much better. It looks better from what I'm seeing, so I think that's the way I'm going to do it. I'm just going to have to get a different setup so I can be near my computer, because it's quite hard being able to read your comments on my phone and all that from over here. So, but thank you very much. Aaron says, "I did notice a lot of Instagram music is that neo soul jazz R&B music." Yeah, I know that a lot of that stuff is lame. If I'm honest, it's sort of all good if people are into it, but it's this. This is kind of what it's created, and this is another thing that Instagram has done, right? The neo soul thing, where people play essentially out of time. They play this stuff where they go. This sort of stuff where it's sort of like floating over the beat and this sort of stuff. That's just, it's I don't know, with way too much reverb and all these lame slides and stuff, and it's just kind of like, I don't know, it leaves me cold. But hey, if people are into it, it kind of neo soul in a lot of ways kind of to me feels a bit like smooth jazz. And smooth jazz, when I was growing up, was a dirty word. And I totally get if people are into smooth jazz and that's your thing, go for it. I got some friends who play smooth jazz, and they're badass guitar players. They can really play, so it's not like they're doing it because they're lame. And same thing happened with free jazz around town here for a little while. There was a whole lot of people playing free jazz, and it was generally because they couldn't play in time. So being able to play random noise shit was a way of them having to get away from having to focus from really being able to swing. But hey, each to their own. Oh, Aaron says the volume difference between guitar and vocals is quite large because you drop the dB on the guitar a little bit. Yeah, sure, man. Thanks for the feedback. How's that? Is that better? Hello, hello, hello. It's quite an unusual setup at the moment how I'm here, because I'm at the couch where I normally film from, but my computer's over there, so it's sort of, I can't really see the VU meter to kind of keep an eye on it. So thanks for the feedback. I do like this setup though. I'm thinking this is the way I'm going to do it in future, and I'm going to find some way to be able to mount my camera behind the computer screen there, so I can use the real camera and get the better picture quality, but have access to my computer. So this is kind of a bit of a trial today. Any more questions? I'm going to have to go in a minute, people. It's been nearly an hour. I try and keep this to about an hour. Sounds perfect. Oh, great. I was at war with my monitors. Remember old Milli Vanilli back in the day? Those guys got slammed for for miming what they did, right? They went out there and they didn't actually sing, and they just pretended to sing, and then everyone just kind of jumped on the bandwagon of slamming them. And then it was that girl Jessica Simpson, where she was the next one who kind of got slammed for it. And now every singer does it, right? Not every singer, but every kind of major pop artist. We had a friend around the house the other night, and she was talking about, she went and saw Dua Lipa, and I said to her, "Oh, did she sing live?" And she said, "Oh yeah." And I said, "Really?" And then she said, "Yeah, I'm sure she was singing live. She had a microphone." I said, "Okay." Anyway, we got kind of talking about it later, and she said, "Yeah, come to think of it, maybe she wasn't singing live for the whole lot of it." And I said, "Yeah, she probably wasn't." Because, with those headset microphones, if you can always tell if someone's singing live or not, because if they have those headset mics where you can't move off the microphone like this, you're stuck, it's right there. And then someone's dancing around on stage, you'll hear them going, right? Because it's right there. So that's often why, people aren't necessarily singing all of it live, because they have to dance around. And also, too, sometimes they can't sing it live. I hadn't even thought about the matching hat and top. Yeah, I guess it is. It's got this grey part in it. Grey. This has been my favourite hat at the moment. I bought this when we were in the US, because as usual I go and buy a heap of clothes when I'm over there, because it's just so much cheaper, especially at Marshall and Ross and places like that, where you can get like Levi's for like $25 as opposed to like $200 in New Zealand, sometimes $150 for like the cheaper ones, $120 for the very cheap ones, but you can buy them for like $20-25 there. And this hat, I remember walking into one of those, some store, and I think it was like $5 or $10, and I was like, I really like that hat, so I'm gonna take that one. But yeah, this is just a New Zealand. I bought this in New Zealand, but I hadn't planned to match. Any quick questions? So I'm gonna have to go in a minute. So many possibilities on that tune, yeah, it's just awesome. It's great fun. I kind of learned how to play that tune when we were on that Mike Stern tour, and Mike and I jammed every day in the hotel room for about 3 or 4 hours a day. And we would drive to the next venue, and then we get there and we get checked into the hotel, and then get the guitars out and just play for hours. But we played giant steps every day, and we played All the Things You Are every day, and usually another standard or two, and some of them we'd do for an hour. Like giant steps. He'd play a solo. We'd just go back and forth and back and forth. And by the end of that, I really kind of felt like I kind of got an understanding how giant steps worked. I didn't really get it before that. And then ever since then, I've just kept building on it. I feel like I'm getting better and better at it. Hey, folks, I'm going to have to split, but thank you very much for joining me. This was a bit of an experiment with the real camera, but I think the picture quality is so much better. I think I'm going to have to figure out a way to do this, which I'm sure it's not that difficult. I'm sure I can figure it out. But yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for everybody who's checked out the videos. That Fender Ultra video, spent a lot of time on that. So if you haven't checked that one out, that's the most recent video, watch it. Drop me a comment, let me know what you think. it also lets Fender know that I'm good at doing this stuff, hopefully, and that they can send me more stuff to check out, because, you know, I share this stuff because I like guitars. You know what I mean? That's my whole reason for doing this, is I love the guitar. You know, and if it's something cool, it's one thing too, I should say too, is I never demo products I don't like. I don't see the point. What's the point of me sitting there ripping it to shit? Well, it doesn't serve anybody. And I've had a whole lot of manufacturers reach out. You know, my channel's growing somewhat, and so they're paying attention. And obviously, you know, being a pro player, they see, okay, this is going to make our product, show our product in a good light, and they can grab from that video, I guess, was what they're thinking of. But, you know, it's had a couple of them come and sort of try and give me a script of what they want me to say. Never going to happen. Try and say, we need this amount of videos in this thing. Never going to happen. Like, this has to be my words and my way. And if there's something negative about it, I'm going to say it. Like this. I had to mention that it's a heavy guitar. It won't bother some people, but it'll bother others. But I'd be doing you all a disservice if I didn't mention it, right? And some people do that. You see people on YouTube that kind of do these demos and they gloss over the thing that's the negative thing, and it's just lame, right? So anyway, I'm glad. So if you haven't checked it out, check out that. I worked really hard on it, especially that 5/4 thing at the beginning. I had this Nate Smith loop pack that I bought, and there was this loop in there. I was like, man, that loop is like kind of going all over the beat and stuff. And then I realized I was playing in 5. I thought, well, that'd be fun. Why don't I do a funk groove in 5 and kind of show how to do that? And the thing with playing an odd meter is you really want to play. What I was trying to do, at least, was trying not to just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. You know, start your phrases leading into beat 1 and kind of going across bar lines, because that's when 5 sort of becomes a bit ambiguous. If you want to see a great example of that, go and check out 7 Days by Sting. You know, you barely even notice that it's in 5, because it just feels natural, the way it kind of, he sings over bar lines, and, you know, they're not rigidly having to say, here's the 1 all the time. You know, just like you wouldn't in 4/4. In 4/4, you wouldn't like plant the 1 all the time. Maybe you would. I don't know. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, folks.